Live every day as if it were the last, because before you know it, time goes past and life's just not that long. Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone. Taste the wind, don't let it blow on by. Sing songs of love, let the music get you high, and when it's said and done.
The black South African Desmond Tutu was a hero of conscience, a hero of bravery. For many years, he strongly, publicly protested the brutal evil of the white supremacy government that tortured, jailed, murdered many black South Africans. And after democracy came in 1994, Desmond Tutu worked to bring healing and reconciliation between the former enemies, the whites and the blacks. He insisted the nation tell and hear the truth about the massive, bloody, racist horrors whites had committed against blacks for many years. Desmond Tutu fought for equality for all people, men and women, of all skin colors, beliefs, backgrounds. And as a gay man, I strongly compliment and thank Desmond Tutu for championing lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people. As a humble man, Desmond Tutu wanted no expensive, fancy casket. His plain, simple pine casket had rope handles. What an inspiring example for me and for millions all over the world. Desmond Tutu died December 26th, the day after Christmas, 2021. He was 90 years old. For the rest of my life, whether I die tomorrow or 30 years from now, I aim never to own a car. I aim never to live in a much larger space than my 114 square foot rented room now. I want always to live below the U.S. poverty level and below the U.S. federal income taxable level. I refuse to pay for U.S. wars and U.S. nuclear bombs. Why would I want much more stuff, much more money than I need, while many millions worldwide suffer hunger, cold, sickness, with no home? I want always to dance to beautiful, heart-touching music if I am able. I want to keep making new friends, a great variety of friends, while I treasure my old friends, living and dead. I want to keep my eyes and my heart open to possibly new lovers. I treasure heart-to-heart conversations. The more deep and real and personal, the better. I want to forgive myself and others. I want to ask forgiveness when I wrong others. I need and I want many hugs with men and women of all ages, of all colors, anybody who sincerely wants for us to hug. I love to sunbathe naked and mostly naked, most days all year around. I enjoy gardening to grow food and flowers. For the rest of my life, whether I die tomorrow or 30 years from now, I aim to eat only healthy, raw plant foods until I die, unless I can no longer get them. I want always to speak out publicly against white supremacy, against all injustice, against war, until my last breath. A man wrote, "I'm a 67-year-old retired medical doctor who happens to be gay. I too felt controlled and trapped by my parents when I was younger. And over the years, I was counseled by 2 psychiatrists, 3 psychotherapists. And even after all that psychiatric help, I still felt great resentment toward my folks. However, after I moved to Los Angeles, I was fortunate to find a mentor. And one day, my mentor said something that forever cracked my shell of resentment and anger. He said, 'Armand, your parents behaved the way they did because they didn't know any better.' And I suddenly realized that both my parents had only 6th grade educations, and had they known better, they probably would have treated me differently. And when I asked my mentor if I should forgive my parents, he said, 'You got it. You'll have to forgive them every time they come to mind.' You know what this man says? It took quite a while, but I persisted. It paid off. And finally, all my anger, all my resentment dissipated. I cried tears of joy for my newfound freedom, my peace of mind. And then I actually began feeling love in my heart toward my parents. Softly, slowly, love heals. From a 67-year-old gay medical doctor in Los Angeles. Slavery in the United States was not just an evil in southern states. Slavery was not outlawed in New York until 1827. The last enslaved black men and women in New Jersey were not set free until 1865. The whole nation made money from the plantation slavery of black men and women in the South. The cotton from the southern slavery plantations went to the mills in the North. Wall Street in New York City made fortunes connected to cotton and slavery. All of us in this nation, North and South, need to know the true history of brutal white supremacy toward blacks and Native Americans. Why do many U.S. movies glamorize murder? Why do millions of people watch murder movies as entertainment? Ask the people who clean up the blood and the guts and the body parts of murdered people if murder is entertaining to them. Ask the homicide detectives if murder is entertaining. If your closest friend, your dearest family member were murdered, would you enjoy as entertainment a movie about their murders? We all will die. By living healthy in every way, every day, we can greatly improve our chances of a long, healthy life until the day we die. But accidents happen. Violence happens. And tomorrow is not guaranteed to me or to you or to anyone on this earth. Sooner or later, we all die. Refusing to think about death does not make death go away. Refusing to talk about death does not make death go away. Refusing to prepare for death does not make death go away. We need to, one, put one or more persons whom we trust and who are close to us in charge of making decisions for our care when we cannot. Two, we need to tell those persons clearly what kind of medical treatment we want or we don't want when we're dying. Three, we must tell them how comfortable we want to be when we are dying. Four, how we want people to treat us. Do we want music played or poems read or just quiet, holding our hand or remembering past good times together out loud? Five, what we want our loved ones to know. 5 wishes. I highly recommend this. This is my copy filled out for the people in charge so they know exactly what I want and what I don't want when I'm dying. And you can, it's a legal document for anyone 18 years and older in New Mexico and most states. When it is signed, witnessed, and dated. And to copy this free from the internet, go to 5wishes.org. Free, 5wishes.org. Fill it out and make sure your persons in charge know where you keep it in your home, and give them filled out photocopies for them to keep with them. Millions of people have used 5 wishes. It's in Braille and it's printed in 26 languages. It's so simple, so clear. It's wonderful. I urge you to fill it out. And if you're close to death, or if you're in a coma, not expected to recover, do you want life support treatment? I don't. If you have permanent and severe brain damage, do you want life support treatment? I don't. And see, if you haven't filled something like this out, if you haven't clearly told the people in charge what you want, sometimes families end up in serious fights over what to do. Some may say, keep the person alive, whatever you have to do, even to puncture their neck and put in I forget what you call it, I guess a tracheotomy. I sure as hell wouldn't want that. And then other relatives or friends may say, no, I don't think he or she would want such a thing. To just keep the person alive hours or days longer and maybe a long time in a vegetable state? No. And so families can argue and sincerely believe what they're saying and yet disagree. I know a hospital chaplain here in Albuquerque who has even had to call security because of how families seriously disagree on what to do with their loved one. How and where do you prefer to die, in a hospital or at home? At home for me. I don't want to be in a hospital. Do you want your doctor to give you medicine to relieve your pain, even if that means you will be drowsy or sleep more than you would otherwise? Well, if my pain is severe, I would like medical marijuana if that's enough to take away my pain. I don't want to be totally out if I am still able to think and to speak to loved ones. Do you want certain people with you when you die? Yes, I want my closest friends. Do you want your friends, family, and others to forgive you for when you have hurt them? Yes, I do. Do you want family, friends, and others to know that you forgive them for when they have hurt you? Yes. Yes, I do. Do you want all your family to make peace with each other before your death, if they can? Yes, I do. Do you want everyone involved to respect your wishes, even if they do not agree with your wishes? Yes, I do. Do you want to be cremated or buried? I want to be buried. I have a plot in the San Jose de Armijo Cemetery on the west side, a beautiful dirt cemetery. The plots are much cheaper than the big grass cemeteries in Albuquerque. And I built my own simple plywood coffin over 3 years ago for about $60. Where do you want your body or ashes buried? How do you want to be remembered? Do you want to donate body organs or your whole body to science? For me, probably body organs. Definitely not my whole body. What songs or readings or message for persons speaking at your memorial service? Do you want the service religious or not religious? For me, not religious. Do you want money contributions to go to a special cause or organization? Many important questions. And let your loved ones know for sure exactly what you want when you die. And if you change your mind, tell them. And fill out a new form, a new copy of 5 wishes, and throw away the old one. A woman in Oregon wrote, I was never close to my mother-in-law, Agnes. She always came across as very religious and morally upright. She recently died of dementia. It came on so fast that there were things Agnes needed to take care of but was unable to. This woman says, my husband was executor of her estate, so we had to go through all of her things and have them appraised after she passed. And one afternoon, my husband discovered a small binder tucked in the back of his mother's lingerie drawer. He looked through it, and to say he was shaken would be an understatement. He let me read it. Apparently, his parents enjoyed wife swapping, and Agnes took notes detailing her activities. Sadly, for many people, the secrets they carry, because they're afraid of rejection by family or neighbors or co-workers. And often the people who seem most religious, most sexually uptight, are living a lie to most people. Now, I'm not saying this is true of everybody who is sexually uptight and very religious, but it's true of some. People in China have used their human shit to fertilize their food crops for 4,000 years. And many hospitals in the United States, and I suppose in other countries, transplant shit from a healthy person to someone whose good germs in their intestines were destroyed by antibiotic drugs. I have a longtime dear friend in Colorado who was given a very powerful antibiotic that killed so many of the good germs in his intestine, good germs that we must have to be healthy. And it took months for him to get his energy back and to feel more like normal. Antibiotics kill both the bad germs and the good germs that we need to be healthy. Now, garlic kills only the bad germs. Garlic helps the good germs. I've taken no antibiotic drugs for at least 25 years. I believe in nature's healing herbs. I eat many herbs every day in my freshly blended smoothies. My smoothies now have 24 ingredients, including many herbs. Transplanting shit from a healthy, lean person to a fat person, unhealthy, can help that fat person become lean and healthy. If the fat person then also stops eating all the processed crap. The bad germs in our intestines cause people, now I doubt if you've ever heard this on TV or maybe any place, the bad germs in our intestines cause people to crave crap to eat. An addiction to junk. If there are too many bad germs in our intestines and not enough good germs, the germs, good and bad, affect our mood, our thinking, our energy, our total body's health. Depression and happiness are largely influenced by those little critters, millions and millions, I guess billions, maybe even trillions, in our intestines. And if they're out of balance, out of whack, if the bad germs are getting too many and the good too little, we're in trouble, big trouble. Most people, one source said 91% of people who receive shit transplants are healed. A doctor said there's nothing else with this rate of cured patients. And the last I knew, the UNM hospital here in Albuquerque is one of many hospitals that do shit transplants. And I compliment them on that. Some of my favorite songs, Live Every Day, the one that begins and ends this program, by my dear friend Seth Hoffman. Voltaire, Voltaire, Danny Boy, De Coloris, Stand By Me, Puño de Tierra, Save the Last Dance for Me, Reach Out and Touch Somebody's Hand, He Was a Friend of Mine, and the melodies and the deep feelings of Amazing Grace and Precious Lord, Take My Hand, even though I no longer believe some of the words in those two songs. Declassified documents, government documents, show that the United States had information suggesting that top members of the Japanese army were willing to surrender to the United States more than 3 months before the U.S. dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki 76 years ago. That secret information shows that the decision to murder, mass murder, over 100,000 people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki was absolutely unnecessary, even to end the war. The main reasons for the U.S. bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki, one was to scare the hell out of Russia after the war was over. Another reason, to convince U.S. taxpayers their bloody dollars were making the U.S. number one in making war. Check out the amazing book from the Albuquerque Library, Biological Exuberance, about homosexuality and bisexuality scientifically documented in more than 450 species of mammals, birds, reptiles, insects, and other animals worldwide. 450 different kinds of animals where scientists have documented homosexual and bisexual behavior. The author in this book of more than 700 pages drew from research conducted over the past 200 years. Animals engage in all kinds of sex that is not involved with having babies. Male gorillas have anal sex with each other. Female grizzly bears live as couples and raise families together. Male flamingo birds live as couples, and female flamingo birds live as couples. Even lifelong male couples, lifelong female couples are in species that have no lifelong male-female couples. I sure as hell didn't learn that in school. Did you? So never again swallow the stupid lie that homosexuality and bisexuality are not natural. Homosexuality and bisexuality are common, very common among animals, and as natural as heterosexuality. Male animals have anal and oral sex with each other. Male animals masturbate each other. Male animals court and flirt with each other. And I would not give up my strong romantic attraction to certain men for all the money, all the fame in this world. Hell no, I surely wouldn't. The main purpose of sex for us humans is mutually affectionate, pleasurable connection between persons. Mutually affectionate, pleasurable connection between persons. Whether that be female and male, female and female, male and male. And if it were not for the terrible taboos from religion, from family, from friends, from society, even in 2022, against sex between men, most, if not all men, would be strongly sexually attracted to at least one male during their lifetime and would enjoy sex and romance with him, even if those men also greatly enjoy sex and romance with women. Sex between men would become at least as popular as baseball, basketball, soccer, wrestling. Many guys who yell faggot at someone else have sex with guys, or they want to, but they don't have the balls to say so. Some can't even admit it to themselves. Some men are terrified of their own deep, hidden desires for sex with men. Some guys are scared if they tried it once with a guy, they would like it so much, they would want to keep on having sex with guys. I would be ashamed to be a boxer. I'd be ashamed to be a football player injuring men. I would be ashamed to be a soldier killing men, killing women in war. Why cheer? Why honor men injuring and killing men and women? Why curse men making love and being in love with men? In Afghanistan, the favorite school books used by the Taliban for years were supplied by the United States when Reagan was president. The U.S. Agency for International Development gave $51 million in grants to the University of Nebraska at Omaha and its Center for Afghanistan Studies to develop these textbooks that glorified weapons and war in the name of Allah. Millions of U.S. supplied school books preaching Islamic militancy, celebrating violent images of war, were used in the schools for years. Boys learned math by counting pictures of soldiers, pictures of tanks and guns and landmines. The U.S. government's purpose back then, when Reagan was president, in supplying these violent school textbooks was to create a generation of Islamic so-called freedom fighters who would run the Soviet communists out of Afghanistan in the 1980s. The U.S. stopped shipping these despicably violent school textbooks to Afghanistan in 1994, but the Taliban continued to use the ones they had against a new enemy, the United States. U.S. federal income tax dollars for years were training Afghanistan's youth in terrorism. And years later, U.S. federal income tax dollars paid for U.S. soldiers and weapons to murder Afghanistan's Taliban young men for being terrorists. Talk about hypocrisy and evil. The U.S. empire is the worst terrorist gang on earth. Not the only terrorist gangs. Oh, no. Dozens of nations around this world cause horrific evil and violence. But I'm saying the U.S. empire at this moment in history is the worst terrorist gang on earth. And sadly, most people in this country do not really understand what the CIA, what the U.S. military have done in scores of nations for decades, and why millions of people all over the world fear and hate this government more than any other government on earth. For years, I've used small, wet cloths instead of toilet paper, and then I rinse them out and use them again. 5 good reasons. 1, the wet cloths clean better. 2, the wet cloths feel better. 3, the wet cloths save money. 4, the wet cloths save paper. 5, the wet cloths save trees. And many years ago, I learned to squat to shit instead of sitting on a toilet seat. Our ancestors all over the world for thousands of years would squat to shit. And many animals squat to shit. Look at your dog, look at your cat. Squatting gives our colon a straight shot to release our shit. Sitting to shit can be one cause of constipation, even cancer, hemorrhoids. So, if I'm using a toilet stool, I should say, I lift the seat on the stool and perch my feet on the rim of the toilet bowl. And if you physically cannot do that, sit on the seat, bend your legs, and pull your feet close to your ass on the seat. And if you physically cannot do that, put something the same height in front of the toilet stool, bend your legs, and put your feet on that. I learned to squat to shit in the 1970s, over 40 years ago. Squatting to shit is the best natural position, as our ancestors knew and practiced for thousands of years. Sitting to shit often leaves some shit in the large intestine, causing low energy, fatigue, even bloating. Squatting to shit is nature's best way to shit. And here are two testimonies by women that I like so much. One woman says, I've been poly all my life, polyamorous. In other words, able to be in love openly with more than one person at the same time, since well before I knew there was such a possibility. She says, as far back as grade school, I've generally had a crush on more than one boy or guy or man, and as an adult, I can't imagine a life where I'm limited to one man, even though I love my husband deeply. And when I was with someone before I knew about polyamory, I'd cheat. I wouldn't want to, but sooner or later I'd meet someone else and fall in love so hard that I had to be with the other person too. I hated cheating. I hated dishonesty. I hated myself. And reading Dossie Easton and Janet Hardy's book, The Ethical Slut, changed my life. I finally understood the person I had been my whole life. I'm polyamorous. I'm not monogamous. I can't choose to be monogamous. I will always have the capacity to love more than one person and the incapacity to keep myself from falling in love with others. It's not a choice whether I fall in love with more than one person at a time. Some people might just flirt with the lifestyle, but some of us are built to love more than one person at a time. And then another woman writes, I'm a bisexual, polyamorous 24-year-old woman. From the very first time I was faced with a cute boy who wanted to date me, I knew that I could not be in a closed, exclusive relationship. I knew it as instinctively as I knew that I found women attractive as well as men. I'd never heard of open relationships. I had never heard of polyamory. I was a virgin, so it wasn't about sex. I didn't have anyone else on the horizon, and I really liked the boy, so it wasn't about keeping my options open. And yet I knew I knew that I could not agree to be his girlfriend without the freedom to date, to flirt, to sleep with, and to love other people. 6 years later, I started dating someone I think might turn out to be the love of my life. He's a match for me intellectually, sexually, emotionally. We make each other so happy, it's silly. And even so, even in the best relationship I can possibly imagine, I know monogamy, in other words, having only one romantic partner at a time, is not for me. Incredibly, he feels the same way. Maybe there are very few people like me. I think most people fall somewhere in the middle, with probably more oriented toward monogamy, having just one partner at a time, than not. But poly people like me exist. A wonderful letter from a polyamorous, bisexual, 24-year-old woman. And I also am polyamorous, like these two women so well described. I love to enjoy sex and romance with more than one person and do it openly, honestly. No lies, no cover-up, no cheating and guilt and shame. Hell to that noise. No, 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 no. Mm-mm. No way. For many people, television is a plug-in drug. Television can be addicting as heroin. And many television shows are spiritual poison. Many years ago in Illinois on the farm, I wasted many precious hours glued to the tube, watching violent westerns, shallow comedies, money-mad game shows. I also watched some good programs that I learned from: Oprah, Phil Donahue, Roots, the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, The Sounder. Why does most TV news concentrate on the crimes of individuals, the thefts, the stabbings, the shootings, instead of the much larger crimes of corporations and the U.S. government? Who pays for the newscasts? Always follow the money. Who owns the major networks? Follow the money. Filthy rich corporations who are closely connected to the U.S. government. Corporations and the U.S. government poison the air, the water, the soil. Corporations and the U.S. government cause millions of birth deformities, cancers, damaged immune systems. Corporations and the U.S. government wage wars, crippling, making homeless, murdering millions of men, women, children. Corporations and the U.S. government rob poor multitudes worldwide in many nations of their labor, their resources, and their land. Do we expect corporations and the U.S. government to tell us the full truth about their massive crimes against humanity? Do we expect that on the evening mainstream TV news when corporations own those networks and pay millions to advertise on those programs? Do we expect the full, bloody, ugly truth? We're fools if we do expect that. The more TV concentrates our fears and our attention on street crime, gang warfare, poor welfare chiefs, the less attention to the much bigger crooks, corporations, and the U.S. government. Corporations receive far more welfare in tax dollars than poor people do. Corporations spend billions of dollars on TV commercials, knowing that commercials convince many viewers to buy their products. So, how can Hollywood producers of TV and movie glamorize violence, claim their programs and their movies do not influence viewers to beat up, to kill, to steal, to rape, to imprison, and to support U.S. wars? Television shortens kids' attention span. Television can cause learning problems. Television often teaches kids to solve problems by violence, guns, knives, beating the other person up. Television causes many kids to have severe mood swings. Many adults get rich off poisoning kids' minds and bodies. Many churchgoers are horrified when kids kill kids and when kids kill old people. But many of these same churchgoers have no conscience whatsoever against paying Uncle Sam federal income tax dollars to kill kids and to kill old people in other nations in U.S. wars. Many kids are damned as no good hoodlums for stealing cars, stealing computers, while politicians and corporation presidents are praised as fabulously successful for stealing billions in natural resources and dirt-cheap labor from other nations. Some kids commit atrocious crimes, and they need to change their ways, no question. But the number one responsibility for kids' crimes is on adults. Kids do not own the gun factories. Kids do not own the gun store. Kids do not make the booze. Kids do not sell the booze. Kids do not advertise the booze. Kids do not manufacture the damn violent video games. Kids do not make the movies glamorizing war and rape and jealousy. Kids do not make the movies glamorizing booze and cigarettes and guns. Kids do not make the movies glamorizing robbery and revenge and addiction to money. Kids do not import the heroin. Kids do not import the cocaine. Kids do not create the TV commercials pushing people to crave expensive crap no one needs and to do anything to get it. No kid should be spanked. No kid should be cursed. No kid should be bruised. No kid should be beaten. No kid should be ignored. Kids do not run Hollywood. Kids do not run McDonald's. Kids do not run Coca-Cola. Kids do not run Philip Morris. Kids do not run Wall Street. Kids do not run Coors. Kids do not run Congress. Kids do not run the CIA. Kids do not run the Pentagon. Kids do not run Baskin Robbins. Kids do not run Sandia Weapons Lab. Kids do not run General Motors. Kids do not run Exxon. Kids do not run Walmart. Imagine if all of us adults refuse to work at any job that harms people and poisons our very sick Mother Earth. Imagine if we adults devote ourselves every day to creating a world where it is easier for us all to do good and to do the right thing. Why are many people in this society ashamed of the natural smells of underarms, crotch, feet? In Greece and surrounding Balkan countries, folk dancers often carried handkerchiefs while dancing, and these handkerchiefs were kept in the male dancer's armpit while not in use. Male dancers handed them to other dancers as an invitation to dance. Natural underarm smell of healthy people can be a wonderful turn-on to people who are not ashamed of their own body's natural smells. A healthy body eating only healthy plant foods does not smell bad. In one group in New Guinea, a villager placed his hand in the armpit of someone leaving the village and then sniffed and rubbed the smell on himself as a friendly parting gesture. The cologne and the deodorant companies in this nation want our money. So they want to convince us our natural smells are bad. Now, if the person is unhealthy and eating the crap from McDonald's and many other kinds of junk food, those persons often will not smell good. But a healthy person eating only healthy, raw plant foods will smell good. To reach out for another is to risk involvement. To expose your feelings is to risk exposing your true self. To place your ideas, your dreams before a crowd is to risk their loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To live is to risk dying. To hope is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. But risks must be taken because the greatest hazard in life is to risk nothing. Good night.
Live every day as if it were the last, because before you know it, time goes past and life's just not that long. Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might